Hi, welcome to Introduction to SAS. In our today's session, we'll be understanding certain very basic aspects of SAS programming. And as you see, we will be using SAS Enterprise Guide version of on demand for academics. So let's get started. So here we have just opened up a SAS interface. And the way we get started is I go to the file menu and click on a new project or open a certain project which has already been created and saved. So in this case, being a first session, I'll go to a new option and I click on project. So what we have here, this is a new project that I have opened up, right? So here I again go to my file and I would like to click on open new program. So this is the window wherein I'll be writing and editing SAS codes, right? So let's just get started. So this is our introduction to SAS Base programming. Yeah. Yes, so what you see here are different windows of SAS. So let's just try and understand the SAS interface before we get started with the coding part of it. So let's see which are the important SAS windows, right? So the section where we are writing and editing, writing a comments right now is nothing but this is the code window. This is a place where we'll be writing and editing our SAS codes, right? So code window is a place where we write and edit SAS codes, right? And what we see on the left hand side is the project tree. Correct. Right now you can just see the programs window that is opened up under the process flow. So because this is a new project that we have started, based on the progress that we make here, that is either open data sets or write codes and execute them and the results that we get. So the entire flow of the codes will be seen under the project tree. So it is nothing but it displays process flow, yeah, which is a flow chart. Yeah. Okay, a project tree is nothing but a flowchart view of project flow. Yeah. So what is a process flow then? It is nothing but a graphical representation of whatever we see here. Right now, you see just there is a program window that is opened up. So based on the codes that we write and the results that we get, we'll get a graphical representation of how the programs are running, how the results are displayed, which data sets are being used, and what are the resultant tables, data sets, or reports. So process flow is nothing but a graphical representation of project, right? And then comes a log window, which we don't see as of now. So what do you understand by log window? It's nothing but a window which displays errors, warnings, and notes on execution of codes, right? So once we write a code here and run it, we will have a log window which throws up, if in case of any errors there, it will display the errors, else it throws up the warnings and notes the execution time involved in processing the code, and so on and so forth, right? And then obviously we have the result window, simple as that. Results are displayed here, right? And then what you see on the left hand side again below our project tree is a server list, right? Can you see the servers? And there's a list of servers, and I click on this, it's loading. We'll be able to see what it throws up. Server list, right? So server list is nothing but a collection of your libraries and certain folders. We will be trying to figure out what exactly libraries are in some time. Okay. So here, since we are using on-demand for academics version of SAS EG, we are directly using the SAS server, right? So here we have SAS app, under which we have the folders and libraries. So in case you're using a desktop version of SAS Base, you just be having a list of folders on your system. That's your physical folders and the libraries that are there. So server list is nothing but a folders and libraries, correct? So these are some of the important SAS windows. So now let's understand what are the things that are there under server list, right? Under server list you have folders, which are nothing but the physical folders on the system or server that you're using or accessing. And then we have libraries. So this is a very important part. So what is a library in SAS? A SAS library is nothing but a collection of SAS data sets. All right. Is nothing but collection of SAS data sets. Alright, so now we have it here on the left hand side. Now I'm sure you're able to see that under SAS app I have my libraries and files. Files is nothing but the folders that I have created on my under my account. Alright, and here I have libraries, a list of libraries. Okay. Yeah, libraries is a collection of SAS data sets. So there are again types of libraries in SAS. So what are the types? Broadly, there are two types. One is there are two types of SAS libraries. One is a permanent library, and the other is a, yes, you guessed that right, temporary library. So broadly, the libraries that we have here can be categorized into two types. Either it's a permanent library or a temporary library. So what is the difference between a permanent library and temporary library? It's very simple, as the name suggests. So the data sets saved, data sets under permanent library are available for use across sessions. these are saved permanently right. And what's a temporary library? Data sets under temporary library are deleted on closing a SAS session. So what is meant by the SAS session is, so now we are working on, I've opened up SAS EG and I'm working on this particular project. So till I close this project, it is one particular session. So if I close it right now, then my session gets closed, and when I reopen it, it's a different SAS session. So in case I've created certain data sets or imported certain data sets and saved it into my temporary library, then I will not be able to access it in my next session. So it gets deleted automatically. So whatever data sets are saved under permanent library are the ones which I'll be able to access even on returning, even on starting a different session or across different sessions, right? So that is the difference between permanent library and temporary library. There's only one temporary library, that is work is the only temporary library, right? So here on my left hand side you can see a list of libraries, different types of different libraries that are listed here. So we have a list of them as I scroll down. Yes, and work that you see here at the end, this is the only temporary library out of all these. The rest of them are all permanent libraries. The difference between the yellow icon and the white icon for these libraries is just that these are already assigned, and the white ones, the ones with white icons, are not assigned yet. So you could just right click and assign a library by just, let me say this, and I click on assign, then this particular library will get assigned, right? So work is the only temporary library, and the rest of them are permanent libraries. So you need to keep that in mind. Correct. So permanent libraries, as we see, the list is already here. This being a ODA, that is on demand for academics version. So we already have certain data sets saved which can be used for practice, and when we are working around SAS codes, that's the reason it's already there. But if it's your desktop version, or if it's a real-time SAS based desktop version, then you would not be having all of this. You will only have work library and SAS help and SAS user libraries that you see here, right? SAS help and SAS user libraries, and then you would be obviously be having the work library, and then the rest of the libraries will be user defined libraries that you create based on your requirement, right? You can create a user defined library using libname statement, right? So we will come to this, we will study the libname statement in detail in a later sessions. So but you need to keep in mind that you can create a user defined library using libname statement. So what, under what category does this user defined library falls? Yeah, since the way we work around creating a library is we'll be assigning a particular folder on a system as a library. So this user defined library is will be a permanent library, correct? So this is how we can work around with libraries. So now going ahead, let's also understand what are SAS data sets. They are nothing but data files. The data files in SAS are called as data sets, right? And the rows of data in a data set are called as observations and columns are called as variables. So going ahead in further sessions, whenever we are talking about observations, we will be calling them as we will be talking about rows, and whenever we say variables, we are referring to the columns of data in a SAS data set, right? So let's just see a sample code as to how a very simple SAS code looks like. So broadly, SAS codes are of two types. Broadly, this is like a very broad categorization. So either your SAS code is a data step or a proc step. In very rare cases, it could be a combination of both data and proc step, right? So what is a data step? A data step, or any code, any SAS code which is a data step, it works with some creating and manipulating data sets, right? And a proc step is used mainly, you want to generate reports. Just for generating reports, right? So a data step is used when you want to create a data set or manipulate a data set, right? So most of the cases you use a data step, and proc step is usually used when you are trying to generate certain reports. So but obviously there are very few cases wherein you would be using a proc step, wherein you would be probably changing the order of the data set and stuff like that, but that's a exception. But generally, in most of the cases, proc step is when you're trying to generate reports, and data step is probably to create and manipulate data sets, right? There are obviously exceptions to it, and this is just a broad categorization. And so now we know that SAS codes are like broadly these. It's either a data step or a proc step. There is certain coding structure in SAS. So what is this coding structure? As in, there is a certain syntax. Obviously, any programming language it would have, you will have to follow certain syntax. So there is a certain structure to SAS code. So that is every code begins with data or proc. Alright, almost every code begins with data or proc, right? And then every line of code of SAS code begins with a SAS keyword, right? And every line of SAS code ends with a semicolon, right? So this is how every line of SAS code would be ending. But again, the SAS coding structure, you're open, you can write like a few lines or 5 to 10 lines of SAS code in the same line, that is in the same number line, or you can split one single line of SAS code across different lines so that it is more readable. So you will need to understand as to where that particular line of code ends. So based on that, every line of SAS code ends with a semicolon, right? You will be able to understand this better as we start working on SAS codes, right? And so the way every code begins with data or proc, the code ends with either a run or a quit statement. Yeah, and SAS codes are not case sensitive. The code can be written across different lines or or multiple statements in a single line. So there is a flexibility while you're writing SAS codes. Okay, so broadly these are certain important things that need to be kept in mind while you're working on the writing SAS codes, right? So let's just take a simple example of how a data step looks like. All right, so now let's just try and create a very simple data set. I'll just help you with a code as to how you can do that. All right, so we start with data. Yeah, and then here we'll have to specify the dataset name, the dataset that we are trying to create. So here the dataset name that you have to give is, let me just call it as student details, right? So when you there are certain rules that are applicable when you're giving assigning a dataset name, a variable name that is named to the column of the dataset, and the way you assign libraries. We will see how you can do that. So let's just write the code first and then revisit the rules of assigning a dataset name or a variable name, right? And then I have my input statement, which will help me specify the variable names that I'm going to create in the process of creating this dataset, student underscore details. Yeah, the variables that I want to create here are start underscore ID, student underscore name, and course opted. Right, so these are the three variables that we are trying to create, and this also ends with a semicolon if you notice. But there's one more important thing here, that see, these are three variables that we are trying to create here, and it is very evident that name is going to be a character value, and course is also going to be a character value, and student ID is most likely going to be a numeric value, right? But we have nowhere specified the type of data, the data type in this statement. So how do we do that in SAS, right? In SAS, there are broadly only two data types. All right, one is character and the other is numeric, right? So character data type and a numeric data type. So as we said, the student ID is most likely going to be a numeric value. In this case, it is a numeric value. And student name and course are character values. So by default, when I don't specify anything and I just use the variable name in my input statement, when I'm trying to create a data set, it reads them as numeric values. So if there is a character value, then you will have to explicitly specify that by giving a dollar symbol at the end of it. You will have to suffix a dollar symbol at the end of the variable name to specify that it is a character value. Otherwise, by default, it assumes it to be a numeric value, right? So that is my input statement, where I'm just trying to create three variables, right? And then I use data lines, right? This is a keyword to specify that the values that I'm going to enter after data lines are the data values that are going to go into my SAS data set. Right, so let us just input some values here. 101, put on some random names. Course is SAS, right? 102, SAS course. 103, Excel course. 104, equal course 105. Let's just say it's an Excel course again. So I've entered 5 observations for the, and there are 3 variables in this data set. I put a semicolon at the end of the data lines. So every line of code ends with a semicolon. The exception to that is when you're entering data values into a while creating a data set. So when you're entering data values, you do not end it with a semicolon. After entering or inputting all the values here, after your data lines statement, at the end of it, you end it with a semicolon, and then you say run. Right, so this is a simple code which creates a data set called student underscore details with 3 variables: student ID, student name, and course. And it has got 5 observations from student ID 101 through 105. Right, so as we have discussed what is that the 2 data types, that is character and numeric. And if you're trying to create a variable which is a character variable, then you'll have to specify, or rather suffix a variable name with a dollar symbol to specify that it is a character value. Otherwise, by default, it reads it to be numeric value. Correct? So let's just run this piece of code. Before that, let's just get into the details of what are the rules that need to be kept in mind while you're giving a name to a data set or a variable. Correct? So a data set or a variable name. What is the nomenclature to that? Your name of a data set or a variable can be a combination of numeric and character values. Okay, the name of a data set or a variable cannot have a special character. There's an exception to this rule. You can only have an underscore, right? Except for underscore, right? The length of a data set or a variable name cannot be more than 32 characters. Okay, you cannot have a value that's more than 32 characters. So these are some of the very basic rules, and the very important rule to keep in mind is even though you can have a combination of numeric and character values in your for your data set name or input name, data set or variable name cannot begin with a numeric value. So it cannot begin with a numeric value, though it can have numeric values after the first character. So let's say, for example, let me say I can have a data set name or a variable name which looks like this: student 101, right? This is correct. This is a valid name. Whereas if I have it as 101 student, it is invalid. So I cannot begin with a numeric value, right? But if I have, it is still right if I give it as S101. I can, but the first thing has to be a character. Okay, but I can even have the first character as an underscore, right? So if I can have underscore student, right? This is still valid. Got that? So these are certain rules that need to be kept in mind while you're creating while you're assigning a name to a data set or a variable. So let's just run this code and see how the result looks like. This is a very simple code to create data set student underscore details using the data step. How do I run this code? Either I go to the run option here and click on run selection, right? Or I can use a shortcut to execute the codes, that is F3. Excuse me. So it will take quite some time to run the codes here on SAS EG or on demand for academics, because the system has to connect to server SAS app, then execute it and give us the result. Looks like I've got a problem with the execution because my SAS EG has got disconnected. I'll have to rerun this code. Yeah, so I've relaunched my SAS session. So I'm going to select this and run this code to see the result that I get. So it's going to take some time, as I mentioned earlier. Yeah, so the program is still running. You can see the green border to this program icon here on the left hand side. So it means it is running, and it's just processing on loading the output data. Yeah, so here's the result that we have. So we have created 3 variables, that is student ID, student name, and course, and with 5 observations. That is what we have here. So this is my output window, which is displaying the output data right now, and this is the log window that we have been talking about. So there are certain notes and warnings and details about the amount of time the system has taken to compute and process this particular code. Correct. So in case of any syntax error, then this is the location where we would be getting the errors that are there in the code, right? So that's a log window, that's a output window. So here is the result. So one important thing to note here is this dataset student underscore details. This is created in a temporary library, which is nothing but work. Since we have not explicitly mentioned any library, specific library name, by default library where it stores or tries to retrieve the specified dataset is the work library. Correct. So it is equivalent to writing it as work dot student underscore details. So in future also, if you want to save this in a particular library, let's say we want to save it under SAS help library or SAS user library, then we'll have to specify it, the library name first, separated with a period or dot, and then the dataset name. This is called as the two-way naming of a dataset. So it's always library reference name dot dataset name, right? So when you don't specify a library reference name explicitly, then by default it is work library. It's created in work library, this particular data set. All right, yeah. So this was a very simple example of how a basic data set looks like. So this is we just tried this out to create a data set called student underscore details with 3 variables and 5 observations. Let's look at a sample proc step, which is a very basic and a simple procedure called as proc print. Right, proc print, the syntax goes this way: data equals dataset name. So let's just try to print student underscore details. Since it is in work library, we don't have to explicitly mention work dot student underscore details. We can directly write it as student underscore details. Let's try and run a simple proc print without other options and statements. So proc print data equals dataset name and run. Similarly, if we want to print a dataset which is there in SAS data equals SAS help, so I say SAS help dot and then the dataset name, the dataset that is here. There's a dataset called cars, right? So this is how a simple proc print procedure looks like. Or right, so let's just execute this. Let me just execute this code. I select this code and then I click on run selection. So it's going to ask me, do you want to replace the results of the previous run? I say yes, because if I say no, a different another program window is going to get opened up, so I don't want that to happen. So we see the details here. Program is running currently, so running proc print. So this what a proc print procedure does is it just gives a print view of the particular data set that you specified. Yes, so here we have it, and it assigns the observation number. So there are 5 observations and there are 3 variables. Here this is a print view of the dataset student underscore details. Similarly, when you specify SAS help.cars, then it's going to give you a print view of cars dataset, which is in SAS help library. What you can also do in the meantime is try and write a code which looks like this: proc print data equals cars and run. So since you wouldn't have mentioned SAS help.cars in the code that you would be trying, you would get an error saying cars dataset is not there in work library, right? Because if you do not mention the library reference name, then by default it will look for the specified dataset into your work library. So that is a very important thing that to note. But you know, as you start practicing the codes and stuff, you will get used to it. Yeah. So here you see this is how the SAS the dataset cars looks like. So it's got a number of observations and variables. Yeah. This is just nothing but a print view of the dataset cars, which is there in SAS help. Yeah, I hope this basic introduction to SAS session has been helpful, and you got a sneak peek into writing very basic SAS code, just 2 codes that we have tried today, and understanding certain basic things about SAS coding. Right? Thank you so much. We'll connect up with you in our next session. Thanks.